tall, bronzed Australian surf lifesaver. In 1943, Spike enlisted in the Australian Army, and at the age of 20, in 1945, Spike disappeared, taking with him a closely guarded secret. Spike was a member of Australia's highly secretive Z Special Unit. On the 4th of June 1945, a massive American seaplane is shot down somewhere on the Japanese-controlled Celebes Island. Just 3 weeks later, a Z Special Unit, codenamed Operation Raven, is sent in to rescue the missing Americans. Unfortunately for the men of Raven, the Japanese were tipped off. They were ready and waiting.
The Japanese reaction force consisted of some 25 soldiers under the command of Second Lieutenant Araki. They were the attacking force. They were the larger number. They had the machine gun well sighted and they had the cut-off party. However, all well-made plans are only that until the first shot is fired.
This documentary uncovers the truth about this highly secretive operation and the tragic outcome. This was a mystery that prevailed for over 60 years, and until now was known only unto God.
On July 1st, 1942, one single disaster would bring about Australia's largest loss of life during World War II.
The sinking of the Montevideo Maru was the worst Australian maritime disaster in history.
To understand this tragedy, you must follow the journeys these men took from the shores of Australia. These are their untold stories.
We kicked off with 2 rafts joined together and 18 prisoners on it. We finished up with 7 and we thought, gee, we might be next.
The battles they fought.
We had 120 or 30 wounded, which we had to leave behind.
The hard labour they endured.
The chances were nil for us.
And the rescue they thought would never come.
They looked like they were dead men, and that's the only way I can describe it.
Tales of heroism and survival from the Rakuya Maru.
They were my mates.
To the tragedy of the Montevideo Maru. Sunday, 9:30 on History.
The story of the Krite.
A very apt name because Krite was to be given a very deadly purpose.
Of the 14 Z Special Unit men who sailed on a bowl mission, codenamed Jaywick, only 4 survived. Krite took them within sight of enemy-held Singapore, where 6 members paddled canoes right into the harbour to blow 40,000 tonnes of Japanese shipping sky high. Incredibly, this old ship got them home again. This is their story.
We weren't too sure whether we were going to, what sort of a reception committee we were going to meet, whether they were going to be our colleagues or whether they were going to be a Japanese welcoming committee.
With an estimated 40,000 tonnes of Japanese shipping at the bottom of Singapore Harbour, no casualties, and Krite now heading for home, all on board relaxed.
Little was known about the men of Z Special Unit. They were sworn to secrecy and were under strict orders never to speak with anyone. The story of the Krite reveals the intrigue and emotions felt by the men of Z Special Unit as they recall 2 highly dangerous and audacious missions. Japan had entered the war, and Australian men and women were to perform outstanding feats of bravery, in spite of the insurmountable odds.
Those that had guns were told they had to go down to the shore and fight the invasion army, those were coming in, and they were terrified.
The Fall of Rabaul and Kavieng is about Australian men and women who gave that little bit extra and performed extraordinary feats of bravery.
He said, if I had a lasso, I'd lasso the bastards.
We knew that the Japanese were beginning to land. That was on the morning of the 23rd.
Soldiers came tearing up the steps, with their bayonets and their guns banging against the side. If we hadn't had John hadn't stayed behind with us, it would have been much, much harder for the nurses.
They were taken outside, stripped of all their identification, and then, of course they knew what was going to happen then.
Goodbye, he said, you all die, goodbye, you all die.
Christ, here comes a damn cruiser. We'll turn our backs and swim away. And no one's to wave at the bastards.
And the full story's come out in all of its glory and heroism, and every Australian can rejoice.
On Monday, the 21st of June 2010, the Australian Parliament is formally recognising, remembering and commemorating the loss of lives during the fall of